Hello everyone, I'm back. If you watched my last video, you know that I bought a Creality Ender 3 Pro 3D printer. And in this video, I am going to assemble it and give you a few tips and tricks along the way. Before I do that, I wanted to say I have a t-shirt here that was sent to me by Pedalbox, and it is pedalbox.show. And it's a couple of guys that are doing similar things to what I'm doing. They're in their driveway, taking cars, modifying them, creating their own car. So stop by, give them a look. Let's see what else we have. All right, so in order to do this video as seamlessly as possible, I went ahead and took all of the parts out of the box, took all of the steps here on the instructions, and then broke each piece down. So you'll see that step 1 is right here, or actually step 0, I guess. Step 1, you can see my one right here. There's the hardware for step 1, and then there's the 2 parts. Step 2 is here in this row. There's 3 is only 1 piece. 4 is those pieces right there. 5 along with its hardware is here. Then there's 6, 7, 8, 9 is just an assembly step. 10, add these parts, and then 11 is that. 12 is the wiring. And the only reason I did that is so that it would make the video a little smoother. A couple of things here is if you look at the instructions here, you can see there's a parts list. And they don't label the parts, they're just there. So it's up to you to figure out what parts are what. Here is something that is somewhat confusing. There's a part 15 and 16 and 18 and 19. And in the pictures, they look virtually identical. They're not. So there is a subtle difference between them. So if you look at step 1 right here, it shows this rail, vertical rail here, 16, and this vertical rail 15. If you look, it says longer and shorter. What that is they're talking about the distance from the top of the extrusion to the hole. And the same thing here, from the bottom of the extrusion to the hole. So 15 has 2 holes. So if you look at this, and just so you know, this is for mounting the power supply. So here's the 2 holes that they're talking about. In this, there's one, there's the other, and they're talking about the shorter distance on the bottom as opposed to the longer distance on the top. If we look at that, that is number 15. Number 16 shows a shorter distance on the bottom, and that's the 2 holes. The difference is this one holds the Z limit switch, which is here, which we'll put on step 3. And then this one is for the power supply, which is right here, that mounts to the back. So that's pretty much, oh, and then we have the same issue here for 17 and 18. All right, so if we come over here and look at this, this one is 8. So I did that too. I also put not only the step number, but the part number in these cases where it might be confusing. So there's 15 and 16. There's 18. And then here's 19. So if you look at 18 and 19, they are slightly different again. 18 is a little bit longer than 19. If you look at that, only about a ½ inch difference or so. The difference is 15 is for the crossbar. So if you look at the picture right here, I went ahead and drew that out for you. So if you look, there's where 15 goes, 16, 18, and 19. So 18 is the one that's a little bit longer, and the reason why is it has to span this whole distance where the rails go. So it needs just a little more length because it's past this. 19 is this top bar, which only has to go flush with these 2 pieces. So that's the difference, is the crossbar is a little bit longer and the top bar is exactly the same width as that. All right, so let's get to the assembly part of this. go. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to show you is the adjustments. The instructions don't say anything at all about adjustments on this, and so I'm going to show you how this works. Now, in each of these cases, there are wheels that go on each side of a rail. Let's see, this is the longer rail. All right, so this is going to go on there. Let's see, here, maybe. All right, so this rolls on here. There's wheels here. They have an angle taper here. There's a matching angle taper here. And this goes there and it slides back and forth on this. All right. So what you want is you want these wheels to be as tight as possible to this without causing any binding. So ideally you would just do it to where the wheel, this bottom wheel moves, the top is stationary, top two are stationary. So you would ideally adjust this so there was zero play. There's not an interference fit, so it's not too tight to slide, but there's no slop, because if you have slop in here, your parts are not going to come out good. Okay, so what happens is the instructions don't tell you what to do about that. So here's how that works. Let me see, let me get the tools out here. Oh, the other thing is it comes with these Allen wrenches, and what I noticed is there were burrs on the end of this Allen wrench. If I run my fingernail across there, it catches. You don't want that. So what you can do is you can take a file. If you don't have a file, you can use sandpaper and emery board. If you don't have that, literally you can go out to your sidewalk and rub it. It's a little more difficult to do, but sidewalk will act as a grinding wheel or sander, whatever. You want to do that so that you make sure that these fit down in, the Allen wrenches fit down in. Otherwise, as you tighten, you could end up rounding that out a little bit. And obviously you don't want to do that. Okay, you will not be taking this apart like I'm doing. I'm just doing this so that you can understand what's happening when you're making the adjustment, if you have to make the adjustment. In this case, I pre-assembled some stuff and it was too tight, so I knew I would have to loosen it. So let me show you how this works. Okay, so these two wheels are stationary. If you notice, this is circular, so it's just a cylinder. If you look at the other one, it has a hex shape to it. So I take off the wheel, there's a screw that goes through here, and then I can take off this piece right here. Again, you won't be doing this. There's the hole, and there's the piece. Now, if you look at the piece, let me get the screwdriver and show you. This shoulder fits into that round hole. But if you look at the piece, it's not centered. Let's see if I can do this. There we go. Yeah, there is slightly more distance from this part of the circle to that, to there. And if you look, that drilled hole is not in exactly the center of that part. All right. So the reason for that is when you put this in here, as you rotate it, we put the screw in here, like so. Okay, so now I have it to where this piece where there's the shortest distance there, which is going to move this wheel, when I put it on, as close as possible to these two wheels, which is going to make the minimal clearance and would actually cause a bind in this case. Okay, as I turn this with this wrench, this shaft or screw is going to move closer or farther away from these other two wheels as I rotate it, and then it cycles up and down. It's kind of hard to see because it doesn't move a whole lot, but if you look at it, you can see it moves closer and further away. So then I put the wheel back on, I put the nut back on, and this will take a second to do. I am limiting myself to only the tools that come in this instead of course, I have tools to do a lot of different things. All right, so I tighten this down, put the Allen wrench here. There we go. And then I simply snug this down. Make sure that that goes back into that pocket. Again, you shouldn't ever have to take this apart like this unless you're replacing these wheels. The reason why you don't want these wheels too tight is because they're going to wear out quicker because of the friction, added friction. Plus, it could cause your stepper motor to slip because it can't overcome the friction by this. Okay, so now, I'm not sure if this will show. So I put the wrench on here and I move this. I don't think you can see it. But anyway, as I rotate this, it gets closer and farther away from these two wheels and tightens and loosens that gap. Okay, so the instructions do not go over that, so I'm just showing you that. All right, the other thing, and the other reason I'm showing you that is that there is this plate right here, and you want to ensure there's no play in this plate or no excessive play. So again, slide it back and forth, make sure it slides easily, which it does, and there's no excessive play. Now, something you need to watch out for is as you flip this up, you'll see that this plate does not solidly attach to the plate underneath it. It is spring loaded with these height adjustments. So actually, this plate right here moves. So you can't check for play too much because of course it's going to have some play because of the spring mounting. What you're looking for is play in between this plate on the bottom and this rail right here. So while if I grab a hold of this, you can say, oh look, it's got slop. No, it doesn't, because if I go down here and grab this underneath, it does not have slop. If you have to adjust it, hopefully you don't, but if you do have to adjust it, the same thing happens here. If you look, let me slide this as far over as I can. There we go. All right, it's hard to see, but this side over here, these two, there's 4 wheels on this one. So these 2 wheels have the circular cylindrical spacer, so they don't adjust. If you come over here, these 2 wheels have the adjustments like that. So you would do the same thing. You would use the Allen wrench and what am I trying to say? The regular wrench to hold this, loosen it just a little bit, rotate it until you just get it to touch, and then you tighten back down the hardware. Now, when you do that, when you tighten this nut, you're also going to want to probably hold this so that this doesn't mess up your adjustment. So you'll get it adjusted exactly like you want, and then tighten this down. Unfortunately, you need an extra wrench to do that because you would want to hold this nut, turn this nut, you would want to hold that. That's very difficult to get the Allen wrench in there. They should have flipped this over and put the nut on the top so you could put the wrench in here, and then you could use the Allen wrench on the bottom to tighten and loosen it. I think they did this upside down from what they should have. Anyway, a bit of a challenge. So you, just showing you that in case you need to do it. Luckily, I don't have to do it in this one. It seems tight, but not overly tight. So that's the way it should be. All right, in the drawings that they show, looking at this, this is the front. This is a magnetic base. It comes off. It could be flipped around backwards, but this is the way it comes. So this is the front of the 3D printer. You can also tell that because this is where the display is going to mount. So also this is the front. So keep that in mind as we're going through the instructions, which direction is which, because then it becomes critical which is the right and the left side here. Okay, that's all of the preliminary stuff I can think of. So let's get to it. All right, so there's all of our parts with their numbers on them, and then all of the hardware. There is spare hardware in some cases, just be aware of that. The other thing I did is, used to be all of their parts had the size, that's M420, which what that means, it's a 4mm thread, 20mm length on this. Okay, if you measured it from the bottom of this screw to the end would be 20mm, and that's 4 inches in diameter. I'm sorry, 4 millimeters in diameter. All right. Now the other thing I did was I went in each of these packages, and a lot of times the same package, of course, they put all the screws the same size. I put what step number this is involved in. So these pieces are for step 2 and step 11. So when I get to step 2, I will use 2 of these. Then I'll take it and place it over with step 11 so that I don't have to think about this. Here's step 1. And again, you only need 4 of these. They give you 5, so they give you an extra. I did go through and cut the corner off so that I can take the 4 out that I need, and then keep the other one in here with it labeled. What they did, I guess, to save money is this is now stamped with the size, and it's harder to see. But this is the M5 by 45. So again, it's 5 millimeters thread diameter and 45 millimeters from the bottom of the screw to the end. All right, so we're at step 1. So if we look at step 1, it's putting these vertical rails in. All right, and again, this is the one where there's the switch going to go. So number 16 has to go on the left side, and then 15 goes on the right side. This is the front that they're showing. And again, it's very hard to tell from this picture that that is the front, which it should have been obvious. Oh, there it is. Okay. So if you look, you have to look real close. There's that one open piece where the display mounts. It is the only open piece. This is solid right here. You can see that solid piece right there. And then the back is back there. All right. So if we look at this, number 16 goes on the left side as I'm looking at it. So I look at my thing, there's 16. I look at it, and sure enough, there's that shorter distance that we see right there. On this one, if you look, it does not matter whether it goes this way or this way. I looked at it, and I cannot see any difference physically between the two. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. Let's pull these out. I need 2 of these right now. And the other reason I leave them in the package is, of course, they would roll around if I didn't. Something else. These crossbars, same thing here. There's the extruded aluminum here and a crossbar. There are 4 screws here. Right. You need to check them and make sure that they're tight on these. On each side, it's funny, 2 of them were tight as I would want them to be. The other 2 were slightly loose. All right, you have to be careful because this thing is made out of aluminum. So if I took this Allen wrench, put it in there, and turned it as hard as I could, I would strip out the threads here. So obviously you don't want to do that because then you're pretty much screwed. What I do is I come in here and I put the Allen wrench in here long ways. And then I don't have much leverage here. So I literally tighten this as tight as I can possibly can with no leverage. Okay, once I do that to all 4, and like I said, 2 of them wouldn't turn at all, 2 of them turn very slightly. You can come in and put a little bit of pressure on, but literally I could strip it out if I pushed as hard as I can right here. So you might want to just turn it just a tiny bit, but not much, and that'll be tight enough. Again, all you care about is everything held together where there's not any play. Okay, so I'm going to use that same rule as I go here. I'm going to turn this on end. These 2 screws go through here, through here. The Allen wrench I will put in here. All right. And then this is hard to do by myself. Again, there's my threaded holes for the Z-axis adjustment. And you have to hold this, push this through, and get it started. All right, once I get it started, I'll come over here and go ahead and start the other one as well. All right, once I get them started, it's going to be faster if you have one of those screwdrivers or drivers with this, it would be much faster than doing this way. All right, now that I have this on here, I'm going to set this down because it's a little easier and faster to do this directly, like this. Oh, something I wanted to mention, if you look, I'm doing this on the kitchen table. I don't want to damage the kitchen table, so I have a piece of cardboard on here, so it's not a bad idea. I could see accidentally scratching this table, which would probably get me shot. It's funny, I always get a hard time from people. Why do I save all the cardboard that I do? This is why, especially the big sheets, because of something like this. So I do have a lot of cardboard boxes. I break them down and keep them flat, but people do see them and they ask. Now, when you're doing this, you don't want this tight. The reason why is because everything has to be aligned so that it's free to move. So you make this snug. So I basically do like I said, I tighten it down relatively tight, and then I back it off, let's say a quarter of a turn or something like that. All right, and the reason why I'm spending time on this is because to do this, to tighten this, you're going to have to turn the machine upside down to get to the bottom. And obviously, the more you assemble, the more difficult it's going to be to make this, work on this upside down. Right now, it's relatively easy. So I'll do the same thing. I'll put the 2 screws in here. I will grab my number 15, which is right here. And again, if I look at the instructions, it says the hole that's closer to the end goes on the bottom, and the hole that's farther up goes on the top. So if I look at this, there's my closer, there's my farther. So it's probably going to be easier to flip this 180 degrees. And you notice this piece it's actually the hot end. This gets hot. There's the hole. Filament comes in here and comes through. There's a tiny hole. It's 4/10 of a millimeter. They've already got this attached for you, so I'd rather not take it off for obvious reasons. All right. The other thing that is critical here is which direction does this go? If I put this on this way, it's going to put the hole farther back. If I put it on this way, it's going to put the hole farther forward. So if I look at the instructions, it looks like the hole goes, I'm sorry, to inside and outside. So if you look close, you can see the hole goes to the inside. Very difficult to tell, but there's that bar in the middle and you can see the holes are there. Okay, so this is the inside there. The holes go to the inside. All right, and so I can get to this with my fingers to get it started. Don't know why I didn't do that on the other side, but I didn't. All right, so I get it down probably snug, and then I start the other one the same. All right, and now I can go back to, now it's standing on that other piece, so it doesn't slant. If it's a little hard to turn, you can wiggle this. And of course, I'm going to drop a wrench. Luckily, it's not a 10 millimeter socket, or else I would never find it. That's a little car guy joke. Okay. Now this is taking me longer than it would if I just assembled it by myself, because I am doing this video. All right, I just want to make sure that this thing is loose enough, tight enough to hold in place, but loose enough that I can wiggle it. And again, we'll have to revisit this in a little bit. All right, I can move it just a little bit, but it's as snug as I can get it. All right, that is step one. Now, from here on, we can leave this upright. I will flip it around so the front is facing me, or you in that case, in this case. All right, step one, out of the way. All right, step 2 is 2 things. 1, I put on the display right here, and then 2, I put on that power supply. All right. So now this package is used up. This is a spare. I'm just gonna set it aside. Okay, let's go ahead and put the power supply on first. All right, if I look, the power supply takes, if I'm not mistaken, step 2 power supply takes the M4 by 20. So like I said, these are the M4 by 20. It's going to take the next smaller Allen wrench. I laid all the Allen wrenches out in size. So like this. And the power supply goes upright just like this. All right. Something strange about those wires. Okay. We get this Allen wrench. So I will do the top one because then everything will hang off of it. And I just start it like that. All right, and do the bottom one here. Obviously, you could use a drill or nut driver with the appropriate bit to do this, but I'm doing it by hand. Okay, I just barely tightened that because I wanted to show you why it matters about that Z-rail. Okay, so there's the wires underneath, so they will have to come out here, and I know ahead of time that they're going to come in here and be attached. If you look at this, by having that rail with the holes on the inside, it puts the power supply right against here. If I were to flip it out, it would still work, but then the power supply would stick out further. I don't know if that would actually impact the operation. My goal is to follow the instructions and do it the way they say. I may look at flipping it around just out of curiosity. Same thing here. I go ahead, and this is a smaller screw, but it's going into a steel chassis. All right, so it can be a little tighter if you want, but it really shouldn't be. So I'll do the same thing. I've got it tight, and then I just turn it a little bit more. Same thing here. I tightened it this way because I have no leverage, and then I come in here and finish it. Now you can see that I know that I don't need leverage, so I'm not coming way out here because again, I can strip it. I can get it the right amount of tightness just by doing that. All right, next thing, the front display. Here is our display. When we get to the point, we're going to have to put the electrical connector on here. If you look, all of these connectors look identical, but the instructions have a little note. And if you look on here, it's going to be hard to see because of light. There's an EXP1 here, 2, and 3. So this needs to attach to EXP3. Just keep that in mind. And when you put it on here, EXP3 is going to be the one that's closest to this table. Okay, so this uses, move this over because I don't want to drop things, these small screws right here. All right, and it only uses 2 of them. So I'm going to get them out of here. And like I said, step 2 and 11, so I'm going to put this over at step 11. This uses the same Allen wrench. I will start this one first. And after I get it on there just enough, I will start the other one. Once again, use the same technique. Tighten it with the long end. First. There we go. Come back here. And this can be tightened down just like that could. This could be tightened down to final tightness because it will not have to be messed with again. Same thing. Tighten it longwise and then come in here and just a tiny bit more. All right. I'm going to go ahead and connect this ribbon after I'm going to look at the bottom. And I can see that this ribbon cable has to go from here to that connector. I might as well do it now. They save it, all the electrical connections till the end. I'm going to go ahead and do it now. If you look at this, there's a bump right here and a slot inside here. So it has to come out like this. So I'm going to follow that ribbon cable, snake it up there, put this right there, and it just plugs right in. This is a little bit difficult to get to, which is why I'm doing it now, because I have a little more freedom of movement. And of course I was trying to put it in upside down. So it goes like this. And I just clip it in there. So now you can see, there it is. The ribbon cable is on this far inside one, plugged in, and that's EXP3. We'll have to do something with this excess cable, but we'll worry about that after we get everything assembled and figure out what's the best way to do it. The kit does come with cable ties, so once we get it all assembled, we'll figure out what's the best way to route the cables and tie them in place. All right, that was step 2. All right, step 3 is the Z switch, Z limit switch. It has these T-nuts. It already comes assembled, these T-nuts. These T-nuts go into the slot here, and then it shows that this is a piece that comes down and it rests against that. All right, so if we look at this, we can see that it goes this way. This faces the front. All right, so you want the T horizontal, not vertical. If it's vertical, it'll still go in there, but it doesn't capture it completely. And these things are kind of a pain. I was going to put this on ahead of time because of that. You can do that, but because I wanted to follow the instructions, I went ahead and did not do it that way. But if I were to do it again and I weren't doing a video, that's what I would do. Once you get them started, they pretty much stay where they're supposed to be, I think. No, of course, they just turned on their own. The screwdriver will come in handy for that. So I get it down here. And again, this little step fits on there. So this is going to take a little work, so you might not be able to see what I'm doing. So what I'm going to do is come back up here and make sure this one is turned horizontally. See, I can, if it's vertical, it won't work at all. It slides in. And obviously it can be anywhere in between. So while I've got it here, I'm going to turn it horizontally. All right, hold it in place by putting just a little bit of pressure on this and then snug this down. And I believe that once I get it like that, it won't be as likely to turn on me accidentally. All right, same way with the top one. Turn it horizontal, snug it down while I hold it horizontally. All right, and here I'm not tightening it all the way. I'm just snugging it enough to hopefully keep it horizontal. All right, so it's a little too snug because it won't slide. So now I just loosen it just enough. Be careful that you don't bend that switch piece there. There we go. All right, so now it slides down. And just as I was afraid of, the T-bar turned sideways on me. There we go. So now I make sure it's horizontal. And then I tighten it down. Unfortunately, there's no way I can see the bottom one of these. It's enclosed. I just have to cross my fingers and hope that it is correct. All right, again, this doesn't have to be overly tight. This one, I'm just going to go ahead and do it this way because it's nothing but a limit switch. As long as it doesn't move on me, it's fine. All right, and then what's going to happen is when the piece comes down here, it's going to hit that switch and let it know it's a limit switch that it's reached that point. All right, step 4 is going to be the Z-axis motor and the Z-axis rod. Something that happened was they put the Z-axis rod in the center of this, so when I opened it up, I didn't even notice it till I picked this up and this came out. It has a rubber or plastic cover on it to protect the threads. Okay. All right, so if we look at this, the Z-axis rod, if we're looking at it from the back this time, so turn around, look at it from the back, and you can tell that because it shows the motor right here. This is the back. All right, so if I look at the back, then the Z-axis motor goes over here on the right, okay? Remember those 2 holes that we talked about earlier? That's where they are. All right, and it uses 2 screws. They are specific to this. So if you look at the motor, it has, there we go, chamfered holes. So if we look at these screws are chamfered screws. They're the only ones like it in here. There we go. So if you look at the screw, there's a taper on that screw. There is a tapered or chamfered hole here and here. So this goes in there and falls down into that chamfer. It centers the screw on the hole. All right, so now if we look at this, I'm gonna make sure we do this correctly. All right, so the motor faces the back. There's the Z switch facing forward. The motor's going to go right here. I don't think, it wouldn't even fit the other way. All right, so find the right Allen wrench. Okay, so it is not this Allen wrench. So there, I'm down to the 3rd size. So the biggest one we used for those, this one that I've been using, and then the 3rd size down, the middle size, because there's 5. It fits in there, okay? So take this motor, line this up. Again, I always get one started just enough. All right, and then I come over to the 2nd one, wiggle this until the hole lines up. Once I get it lined up, I start it. And there's only a couple of threads holding this, unlike the other pieces, because again, it's going into this piece of aluminum that's not very thick. All right. And there may be some alignment required once I get to that point. Now I take the Z-axis, and I'm looking to make sure that there's not a top and bottom to this. There is not. So I'm going to simply put this in the hole, make sure it bottoms out like that. And then there are two, again, Allen screws here. Let's see what size it uses. Probably bigger than this. Nope, that is the same size. This bottom one should not need anything. They should have tightened it from the factory. But again, I'm just double checking. Make sure they did in fact tighten it, because like I said, on the side pieces, yeah, that's tight. Okay, same thing here. Obviously you don't want this slipping, because if it did, then the printer would lose track of where it is, because it relies on so many turns of this. Okay, now this you have to tighten tighter than I would have thought. There it is. I got it as tight as I can get it, and I just felt it not turn. All right, so I'm going to put this in there, and then I'm going to tighten it down. There we go. Maybe, what was that, 1/8 of a turn more? Something like that. All right, and you can see they both turn together just fine. This is simply a protector for shipping. You wouldn't want to get a nick in this, because if there was a nick in it, it could impact the accuracy and movement in the Z direction. All right, step 4. Now let's go to 5. All right, so step 5, now we have that 18. So I come over here to step 5, I have 18, I have this extruder assembly, and then I have a adapter for the Bowden tube. Now, Bowden tube is this thing right here, this Teflon piece. If you look, I'm not sure if I can show this to you. It's up, there we go. All right, so the Bowden tube goes in there. This is the brass piece that I'm going to install, and then this little clip holds it in place. All right, so they give you a spare. So 2 of these adapters for the Bowden tube, and then they give you a spare nozzle as well. And these blue plastic clips are to hold everything in place, hold the Bowden tube in place once you get there. So once again, I have 5 and S. S for me stands for spare. So here's step 5, and then the rest of these are spares, with the exception of that little blue piece, which I can't put on right now. All right, so back to where I was. I go to this, and we can see that this is where the filament comes through. The filament comes in here and then goes down there, and this guides the filament in place. So if I look at this, there is a little washer right here. It's captured, so it won't come off. So I put this on with my fingers, grab one of these wrenches. Let's see, it's going to be this wrench right here. Doesn't have to be overly tight, just has to be there. Okay, so I put it there, I tighten it, and then just a tiny bit more. All right, eventually this is where the Bowden tube comes in here, and then you pull out on this, and that captures it in place. If you want to take it off, you push down on this and pull. So if you look, and you can hear it click, so it grabs that Bowden tube. The reason I'm showing you that is you may end up having to replace the Bowden tube or pull it off or adjust it, whatever you need in the future. Okay, so then once I do that, then I grab number 18, again I marked it, and I attach this. All right, so if we look at this, this is the one that, okay, there are 3 holes right here, close together. There's a hole right there, and then 2 holes right there. So we have to figure out which one of these this actually does. There's two holes right there where the assembly mounts. All right, so if you look, there's two holes right here. All right, these are actually for the Allen wrench to go through. The mounting holes themselves are inside here. All right, so if you look at it from the back side, flip it up so you can see for the light, but there's two holes right here. Those are where the bar actually mounts to. So if I grab the bar and I look at all the holes that are available, I can see that, here we go. All right, so here's how you know how this goes. If you look, there's the two holes that it mounts to, right there. There's a nut right there. If you look right here, here's the two holes, mounting holes. This larger hole right here is to fit over that nut. All right, so there's the nut, there's the two holes. Put this on here just like that. Now this takes some dexterity because you have to hold this in place. And then, where are my screws? Let's see, this uses the M4 by 16. So 3, 4, 5. This better be M4 by 16. It is. So grab two of these out. There's one, there's two. This works for step 5 and 6. As you can see, I marked it on the package, 5 and 6. Now I turn on step 6. Okay, so now what you've got to do is you've got to put this screw in that hole and line up that. It may be easier to take this off. Put the screws in the holes first. Again, you need to use gravity to help you with this. All right, so I did one, I did the other. If you had some needle nose pliers, that might make this a little easier. And since I know I'm going to have to tighten this down, I'm going to go ahead and put the Allen wrench. It's not this size, it's the next smaller size. Right here, put in there. There we go. All right. So now, with all of this in place, I'm going to put this in place. There we go. All right. So I'm going to have to hold all of this and then turn this. If you can see in there, I'm not sure how to make it to where you can see. And as you can see, this is somewhat difficult to get everything lined up. Whoops, I should not have turned that upside down. All right, I'm gonna pull this off camera because this is a challenge to get all of this lined up and started. There we go, once you get it started. All right, I just snugged that enough to hold it in place. And again, I dropped the screw. All right, so now I'm going to fish the other one. I have the farthest one attached. I'm going to fish this one in the hole and then come in from the top. This one should be a little bit easier to get started. Yeah, I think. There we go. Snug that one. Snug this one. Okay, obviously there's going to be some amount of play here. All right, and then you can turn this wrench again sideways and do that last little turn here. Same thing on the inside one, just a tiny bit. There we go. It may look like I'm putting a lot of force on that. I'm not. I've just been doing mechanical stuff for a long time, so I'm not putting much force on there. Okay, so now if we look at it, we finished step 5. We put on the Bowden tube adapter and then put on the assembly right there. The extruder, yeah, and the motor. All right, so now step 6, we go and put on these other pieces, which is, if you look at that, that's the green piece right there that I was showing you how to adjust the wheel. And then this other piece right here is number 5. It's this piece right here that's attached to everything. So before I mess with it, I'm going to go ahead and put on this triangular piece. Okay, so if I look at the picture, let's see, easiest thing to reference is this knob for the filament to come through. So I see there's the knob right there. So if I turn this way, sure enough, the knob is facing me. There's that Bowden tube adapter I just put on there in green. All right, so with that in mind, I come in here and take this piece, and if I look at it in the picture, it's oriented this way. Okay, so same thing that we had before. There is a screw right there. All right, so this screw has to clear. So I put this on here, and if I put on here the screw, this is the bigger hole, has that clearance right there. That goes just like that. And then we turn it this way, and we can see that, like that, the holes line up. Okay, so remember 5 and 6? Well, here's 6, the package that I have. They do give you an extra screw. All right, so this comes through this side and goes into that little hole right there. Let me show you what I've got. Luckily on this one, I can look through here, line it up visually. Makes it just a tiny bit easier than that other piece that I could not see. All right, just turn it in a little bit. Once again, grab my Allen wrench and just go to there we go. Just tight enough to say it's there. All right, then I do the same thing here. Put the screw in. This one, since I don't have to hold that in place, I can start it with my finger maybe, or not. Obviously, if you feel any resistance at all at first, you want to stop because you don't want to cross thread this. Cross threading is when you put in a screw crooked, and because this is aluminum and these screws are steel, it can cut its own new threads in there, and obviously you don't want to do that. It would also make it, even though it might work now, it would make it susceptible to stripping in the future. Once again, I come in here like I did. Lighting's not the best here. All right, again, put as tight as I can with no leverage, and then come in here and just a tiny bit more with it in the other direction. There we go. All right, now this piece needs to go on here. All right, Unfortunately, they don't show you where this is relative to where it belongs. So if I look at this, I can see here's my 3 wheels here. Here's my 3 wheels here. This has to go on to the bar. So let's go all the way back to the picture at the start so that we can see where all of this goes. All right, so if we go to this top picture, we can see that if I'm looking at the front where the display is, then these pieces face me. All right, so I flip this around so that I am looking at the front. This is going to have to go back. And here's where you're going to want to look at where all these cables are and probably go ahead and untangle them at this point. You don't have to, you could do that later, but personally I want to keep the cables as free and clear of each other as possible. So I'll do a little pre-routing of my cables, knowing where they're going to go. Okay, again, they have you wait till the very end to attach all of the cables. Because I'm here and looking at it, I would rather just go ahead and connect it right now. All right, so I'm gonna turn this on in. Okay. All right, so I'm going to turn this on in so that you can see what I'm doing. And here is the power cable. There's the power supply. There's some of the, so this simply plugs in like so. All right, let's see, what else do we have? All right, since I've got it upside down, I already connected that cable. I'll come over here and all of these connections come over here. I'm going to get all the twist out of this, and there's no reason for that to go through that loop right there. So I'm just going to pull it this way. Again, it doesn't really matter. I just like my cables all neat and tidy. All right, so if you look at these, they have these little pieces of plastic on here. This says E, that stands for extruder. This says X, it stands for the X-axis motor. This one also has X, and it happens to be for the X-axis limit switch. So if I turn this thing so that you can see it, there we go. All right, so this has to obviously go above this. I guess it could, maybe it could go there, I don't know, but it won't matter. I have enough slack here. Okay, so if we come over here, and this one is, that's the Y. So here's our Y-axis motor, our X-axis motor. Is there. Okay, so if I look at this, one of these motors was marked. I don't know which one it was. Huh. All right, I thought I looked at this previously and saw that one of these was marked. Obviously, this is the extruder, and then here's our motor. All right, I'm going to wait until I get that mounted. There's no reason it has to be done right now. So let's go back to, oh, this was the one I bet that was marked. Nope, it is not marked either. But I know this is it. Okay, put this up. Once again, go back to the very first picture right here. All right, I'm looking at the front. There's the display. All right, there's the sliding table. There's number 16, 19's not on yet. There's 15. This is number 18 that I'm putting on right now. So if I look at this picture, I can see that so there's the triangular piece. And you can see I did exactly what I shouldn't have done. Looks like I might have installed this upside down. No, that's in the back. Okay. Sorry about this. I am trying to figure out how this goes. All right, so there's the Bowden tube. This has to face down. It has to go like that. Wow, it looks like I assembled this backwards. All right, I did. I assembled this backwards. Okay, so if I look at the picture right here, I can see that this should be facing outward, like so. But this motor right here should be backwards, and the extruder should be facing down. And of course, this was the one that, oh, it can't have been wrong because remember that clearance hole that was there? It would only go on one way. This one the same way, the clearance hole would only go on one way. So if I look at this, all right, so there's the Bowden tube. Oh, that's what it is. Sorry. Okay, I did it right. This now goes on to here. Cable right there. I know the extruder has to face down, so this can go no way other than like so. Okay, and that's why it matters which order I put it in, because now this won't go on because of the interference with those screws. Okay, so I could take the wheel off, or it's going to be much easier to take this off. That one's too big. And my Allen wrench. There we go. Okay, so if we go back to the previous step where I put all this together, right here. Okay, so it did not warn me that you can't put this green piece, let me show you. You cannot put this triangular green piece on until you already have this in place. Okay, so I am going to look at why this won't go on. So this has to face down. This goes like this. All right, and then this, you know, the heating element has to, or nozzle has to go down. This would go like that, and if it weren't for that screw, this would slide right on. This screw sticking out here. Okay. So rather than completely remove this, I'm going to see if I can just loosen it. So all I'm doing is taking loosening this screw and this screw. Okay, and what I'm going to try to do is loosen them as much as possible without actually removing the screw. Or if I do remove it, I'm going to do it such that I put it right back in place. Yeah, I think this might work. Okay, same thing here. All right, so it is not removed, but it is as loose, almost as loose as I think I can get it. Once again, I make sure this is oriented correctly. I come over here, make sure this is oriented correctly with the nozzle pointing down. This is going to go there. So I'm going to slide this on here. And sure enough, oh, it is oh so close. All right, so part of this could be the tension of the wheel. So in other words, it does feel like that. So what it is remember the wheels are adjustable for tension. So I do believe this is a little too tight. What I can't believe they did was made this so difficult to get to, but they did. Okay, so there we go. All right, that worked. Okay, so I did turn this a little bit to make it looser. All right. Okay, now it's so loose that this wobbles. All right, so I obviously don't want that. You can see if you watch closely, I can wiggle that, which means the wheels are too far away. So now I'm going to turn this to move it closer until I get rid of that wobble. Okay, and you can feel the difference. It's loose there. As soon as I get to there, I start to feel resistance. Now the wobble's gone, but this slides really easily. All right, so I'm gonna see if I can get it a little tighter. Okay, I'm starting to feel a little friction as it moves across here. Okay, so that means I'm probably just right. It doesn't wiggle, but it does move freely. All right, now back to where I was before I screwed up. I will tighten these back down. So the estimates on assembling this have been anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour. Obviously it takes longer when I'm showing and demonstrating as I go. All right, so that one's slightly snug. This one is, okay, tight as I can get it there. Tight as I can get it there. And then that tiny bit extra right here and right here. All right. Now, okay. Now that I have something to reference, this nozzle faces down. If I once again go back to the start, let's hope everything's right now. Okay, so if I look, there's my, we'll call it my trolley, right there. There's the trunk, okay, I'm gonna do this. Okay, so there is one of the motor, stepper motors right here. There's the triangle piece, and then there's my trolley that slides back and forth. Okay. So I flip this around. There is my stepper motor over here. Here's my triangle piece, and here's my trolley. And with the trolley, you want the fan facing you. All right. I'm going to turn this a couple of times because I know that this needs to go like so. Okay, now what I do is I take this, let's see if that's 6, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so 7, I want to step 7. And they show you doing this off of there. So slide this over. And it's the belt tensioner. Okay. Again, it has the T hardware, so obviously it has to face this way. So if I look at it this way, all right. So slide this over. This goes in here, and once again the T nuts. But this time, at least you can see the T nuts in place. All right, that was relatively easy. Okay, so this is the belt tensioner. Grab this. So there's no point in tightening this down any more than snug because it's going to have to be adjusted to adjust the belt tension. I'm looking in here to make sure the T-nuts are in fact in the T position, and sure enough, they both are. Okay. So that was, oh, and it does show you right here that you want to make sure the T-nut is in the T position, which would be the vertical in this case, and not horizontal. And then you just slide it in here so it looks like that. All right. It shows tighten right here. What that's referring to is once you get the belt on, you slide this in and out to adjust the belt tension. So that takes us to step 8. Belt. Here's the belt. And what it does is it goes over this pulley, or I'm sorry, wheel right here. If you look inside of here, there's gears in there. The belt has to go there. And then if you look at the slider right here, the belt goes in that slot, and then it'll be like that, okay? So you've got to snake this through here, okay? The tricky part, somewhat, is this has to go inside this rail and underneath these 2 wheels. So easiest way to do is put it down in there and see if you can slide the wheels over it. It is a tight fit over that brass piece. Okay. This comes down, feeds through here. You can see this is now, belt is inside this channel and the brass piece is down in there. Okay. Now I come through here, and again, this is kind of tricky. I have to snake this over and engage the gear. And because this was wrapped up, it's going to want to go underneath it, which is where the screwdriver comes in. So if you look, let's make sure I've got everything. All right, you can see there's the brass end right there. That's not where it goes. It has to go above that gear wheel. So I'm going to pull this off camera, I think, or maybe I can pull it out. There we go. And then it just takes a little finesse to get this, and gravity, to go above that gear and feed it through there. And of course you can see it really easily. Getting to it is a different story. All right, I'm going to try something a little different. I'm going to go ahead and pull this out and then see if I can twist it, go in between that sensor switch. Sorry I can't show this to you. That's not going to be any easier. So I'll pull this out. So by using the screwdriver from the end, we'll try it this way. All right, so what I'm going to do is, because this has a natural curve, I'm going to start it this way. That gets it over the gear. Then once I get it past the gear, then I can flip it around to the correct orientation. And then it has the same curve here, but this is much easier to do this side. Once again, though, I will flip it to where it naturally wants to go out. Once I get it in here, you can see the teeth are on the wrong side if you look. So now I'm going to flip the belt over, looking at how this goes so that the teeth are on the correct side. So I can pull this way out here so I have more room to work with. Flip the belt inside out from where it was, which is of course is right side. All right, so now, there. The belt, teeth on the belt are on the teeth of the gear. Okay, so put this around here. All right, wow, that was way more difficult than I thought. Okay, so now this, so I'm going to use the screwdriver, belt, so here's the trolley, there's the belt. It goes into this notch in the trolley. Again, light may make it difficult to see. There we go. So there's a notch right here. I should have had the light on behind me. And there's a notch right there. So this goes just like that. All right, then this comes over, and this one's a little harder to do because we have tension on the cable. I am going to loosen these two screws here. Make sure everything is correct. Okay, so when you do this, you will not see the teeth because the teeth are against the bar. There we go. Wow. Far more difficult than I thought it would be. All right. So now the belt is installed correctly. You can see I cannot see the teeth of the belt here or here. And then the brass pieces stick out from the slot and the belt is in the slot. So now if I take this, I can slide this. And if you look, there it goes on the teeth like it's supposed to. Come over here and see, and it rolls over that. All right, so the next thing is to adjust the belt tension. Again, I left this a little bit loose. All right. And again, like everything else, you want it just tight enough so that there's not play in it, but you don't want it too tight so that it's difficult to move. All right. And make sure everything looks okay, feels okay. Now I'm going to try loosening it up just a little bit to see if that helps or hurts. I don't know. Because I feel, I have a twist in the belt. All right, so that didn't work out quite like it should have. That goes there. Don't understand how I did that. But I did. Okay, so now slide this like that. All right, apparently I got a twist in the belt. Let's see, it's flat here. It's flat here. So if you look, you might be able to see right in the middle, the belt flips upside down so I can see the teeth, and then it flips back up. And I don't know. All right, so now I will pull the belt out. Look at it from the top and get rid of said twist. So maybe I should have titled this thing How Not to Assemble This Thing. There we go. Well, that got past one wheel, but now the other wheel is not happy. All right, rather than fight with this thing, I'm going to, there we go, pull it off and put it back on. There we go. Now, okay, there we go. Now it slides like it should. And this is loose. Make sure my belt has tension on it. All right, so I've snugged it down. Turn the wrench 90 degrees. Finish it. All right. So now I had already checked this to make sure it's slid easy enough. So if it is much more difficult than it was without the belt, then obviously the belt is too tight. But it seems to be okay to me. Okay. Step 8. Step 9. Finally. Go to step 9. Now we put this assembly onto the rails. Once again, by looking at it previously, we know this has to face, nozzle has to face down, so this has to face this way. This motor's on the left, the triangle piece is on the right. So, slide it down from the top. Watch your routing of your cables. And this is why you leave those bars loose when you were first putting them on. Okay. The other thing is this threaded rod has to go into the brass piece. Let's see if you can see that. Nope, it's out of your view. All right, let me raise this up a little bit if I can do it without messing things up. There we go. Okay, now you can see what I'm working on. All right, so this threaded rod right here, there is a brass piece right here that you can just barely see. And this is what makes it move up and down. This screws in and out. So once you get these basically lined up, then you have to use this threaded rod. And you can turn it down at the bottom a little easier. So I just kind of wiggle it, there we go, until it starts going down. And from this point forward, this threaded rod will determine where everything is horizontally. Now, once you get to this point, you need to make sure this is fairly even. There we go. All right. And ideally, that will slide up and down. All right. Now, again, we need to check the fit of these on there. If I were to do this again, I would honestly adjust the tension on this without the rod in place. And the same thing here, I would adjust the tension, so I may do that in just a moment. Step 9. Okay. Looks like we've got step 9 done. This goes up and down. The rod turns. All right, step 10, top rail, alignment. Okay. If we look at this, there's the regular holes, and then these are the ones that are clearance. They're a little larger for the screws to go through. All right, so this is step 10. Go over here, it's step 10. Here's my step 10 screws. Pull them out. This is going to be the large Allen wrench here. This piece goes on top here. 2 of these go in from the top. These are very easy to put in because gravity's actually working with us for once in this thing. And then 2 more of them. Once again, they leave a spare. I'll throw it over on the bench. This goes in here. This goes in here. And again, these should be easy to start with your fingers. That's why we left this loose in case there was some kind of tolerance issue. Put this on here. Spin it around till it is snug. Over here, spin it around till it's snug. Same thing here. And here. And once again, the instructions do help you here. It says, go ahead and do it to where the larger hole, the screw goes down in, not this way. So again, it's whether this is flipped this way or 180. Right. I'm only snugging these because I'll show you in a little. We've got to adjust everything. All right, step 10, step 11 is the spool holder. So if we look at it, if we have the front, which is right here, the spool holder faces to the back, and it looks like it goes like so. Yep, goes like that. But we have to have our little T-nuts. So there's the T-nuts. Again, my little package 11. And then remember from step 2, I had the screws that are also used in 11. They did not give us any spares here. Okay, so the screws go through the top here. Like so. Once again, I'll use gravity to help. And then the T-nut goes on the bottom. Make sure the T is facing the correct direction. Give it a couple of turns. There we go. Same thing here. Put the screw through, having gravity help. Flip it upside down. Use gravity the other way. Make sure the T is facing the right direction. Like so. Okay. Now, I kind of think they should have had you put this on first, because then you could slide it in. But because we put those screws in, you can't slide it in. So what you've got to do is put the T's in the wrong direction and then turn them, which is a little bit difficult to do. Not impossible, but a little difficult to do. From what I can tell from the picture, the flat part is here, the angled part is in the back. I don't think that's going to matter, but I just thought I would mention it. Big one's too big. This one is the right size. The good thing about this is you can see both sides of the T. So once I get it in there, I can turn it to where it's facing the right direction, supposedly. Again, I think they should have had us do this earlier. Alright, so I've got that one, but this one is not correct. So I'll come in here. I'm actually going to turn this up to where the light I can see. I'm going to turn this to where it is all right. Let's got that. And I will once again tighten it. Okay, I know it's correct because it doesn't lift up. Loosen it just enough to slide. You're going to want this to be not do that. That's probably the most difficult part of this whole thing so far. Well, I don't know, the belt was kind of a pain. There we go. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this Allen wrench now that I've got that horizontally facing instead of the screwdriver. Okay, and I know it's correct because I snugged that down and this thing is captured. Okay, so I'm going to, there we go. All right, same thing here. I'm going to come in from this side using the Allen wrench so. All right. Like I said, it's way more difficult than it should be. All right, that one is correct. All right, both of those are correct. Now, I will just loosen this enough to slide it. Slide this whole assembly forward. There we go. And once again, snug it down. All right, I check to make sure. I'm probably off camera here, I'm sorry about that. Yes, I'm off camera. Okay, let me slide this back. And slant the camera upwards. Okay, there we go. All right, so now I have this here. I put the spool holder in place. All right, the way this works is there's tabs in a slot. You put it in there and then tighten it a quarter of a turn. So put this in here. Make sure the tabs line up with the slot. And there we go. All right, we are officially assembled, other than the wiring. So now, if we look at the wiring, this right here, E for extruder. So there's a wire E. So we come here. All right, the extruder is this piece right here in the back. Okay, so if I come here and I find the E for extruder, you can see the E right there. So the extruder, there's the connector. I will make sure it's right side up. All right. So you can see the two little tabs that stick out here, and there's an opening right there. So this can't be clocked the wrong direction. And you plug it in. For some reason, this wire and this shaft are really close to each other. So you'll have to watch that. They do make a piece to control that. All right, that takes care of the extruder. This one is X, so it's going to be the sensor in the, okay, that's the Z direction. So what is this one? This is the X, so this can be the X motor. So right here, flip it up on the end. There's the connector for the X motor. Once again, look for the pieces sticking out, the opening, and that goes right there. All right, the X sensor is hard to see. It's down inside this pocket right here, okay? So the same thing, the two little tabs face outward, snake it in there, a little bit hard to do. I will use the Allen wrench to help, and in fact, I'm going to set this on end. There we go. Start it like that, and then use the Allen wrench. So it snaps in place. Okay. Now I still have one more loose wire here. This one is, if I look at it, it's the Z. This is my Z axis motor. There's the electrical connector. So this Z one has to come up through here. And it seems to be a little short. So let me look at it at the bottom and see what we've got. Yeah. All right. So that's where the cable management comes in. It's barely long enough to reach. Once again, make sure that's facing the right direction. They really should have given you a little more length here to make this connection. In fact, it doesn't look like it's long enough, which of course can't be the case. So let me see where I can get just a little more length out of this. There we go. I'm actually having to pull some of the wire out from being tucked in there because it literally would not have connected if I hadn't done that. All right, it did connect. There is no slack in that wire whatsoever. Kind of disappointed they did that. Yeah, that's all I've got. Okay, but it will work. All right, so the next step to do is to go off and tighten up all of those screws as we went along. Again, something I would do differently is if I look at my Z-axis, it's hard to tell how much slack there is in this to adjust, so I'm going to, this uses the smaller Allen wrench. I'm going to disconnect the shaft. And then I'm going to adjust each of those wheels. Oh, tightened it a little too tight to just do it long ways. Okay. All right, so now with the Z shaft out of the way, it's no longer influencing how easy this is to slide up and down. But you can see that with this disconnected, the Z shaft just goes ahead and screws down all on its own. So it's definitely free. So next time I was to assemble this, and hopefully you will have learned from this, go ahead and wait to put the Z-axis in, the screw. All right, so now there's nothing in the way. I can feel this is very free to move. This is free to move. All right, so now I need to check the play. Okay, when I do that, there is no play in this direction. There's no play in this direction. If there was, once again, I would go in and adjust the adjustable wheel. In each case, there's only one. The inside wheel on this side and this side are the adjustable ones, okay? And the bottom one on this is the adjustable one. That's why I adjusted it before, because I wouldn't want to be underneath here adjusting it, okay? Again, I don't feel any play. Everything seems fine. So what I'm going to do is, with this all the way at the top, I want to tighten these down. Remember, I just snugged these. Same thing here. I want to come over here and tighten these down. Okay. All right. Bottom ones, again, I only snug them. Come down to the bottom. Tighten them down. And then on this other side, over here, and tighten these two. Okay, that's got that. Now that I've got this whole thing squared Assuming it's square because that does slide easily up and down. This one slides easily back and forth. Now I can deal with this Z-axis screw. So I just put it in here, and you watch, it just goes down there automatically. Okay. Ideally, this should come in. There we go. Okay. Make sure that's in there all the way. Grab my Allen wrench. It's the wrong one. And tighten it right there. And then come in this way, do that last little bit to snug it. Okay, there we go. It is assembled. All right. Again, it's hard for you to see, but all these cables, I'm not happy with this. I would definitely, am going to figure out a way to clean that up. Oh, I did forget the caps that go over each end of here. Okay, so if you look, you can see right there, it just goes inside of here and pushes on. Just decorative, not functional at all. And finally, power cable. You go around to the wall socket. I'm not sure if I showed you to make sure that if you look back here, there was a flip between 230 and 115. Make sure you have it set for 115. If that's what, obviously, I'm in the US, so that's mine. If you're in a country that uses 230, make sure it is 230. Let's see if they showed a picture of that. Yes. All right, so right here, there's a switch in this that you flip up or down, depending on which of the two you have. When you look at it, only the voltage that you're using shows, the other one vanishes. Okay, so move everything out of the way. Make sure my plug reaches. Slide it back a little. Plug this in. Turn it on. There we go. Fan comes on, display comes on. There we go. Okay, it works. I come in here and you push on this and it makes you go to the info screen, and then you rotate it to go that the setting you want. In this case, no media. I don't have the card in it. It's here. It comes with a little, here we go. All right, little micro card. And this happens to be a regular USB adapter on the other end, so that if your computer does not have a micro card slot, you can use this to go to a USB. I do have other cards and they have the adapters that go to the larger USB. So I'm going to put the card in there. It goes upside down. Someone had mentioned that, from what you would think. All right, push it in. And let's see, media inserted, so it sees my card. Push on the button. Info screen is the top. Motion is next. Temperature, configuration, change media, print from media, about the printer. So I'm going to go up here and go to motion. Press on it. There's main, move axis, auto home, home X, and home Y, home Z, and finally disable steppers. All right, the stepper should be engaged right now so that it doesn't want to move. And let's go to auto home. So auto home should go in, go through the cycle, X, Y, and Z, set it to 0. I did fail to connect my Bowden tube in. I just noticed that. Once again, I just take it, push it in here. It's in place. That's where these little blue clips come in. Okay, so here's the little blue clip right here. It goes in between so that that thing cannot accidentally be pushed in, and that'll make sure the Bowden tube doesn't come loose. Same thing for the other one. Make sure that's in place. Grab the other blue one. And so in here we have an extra adapter. We have an extra nozzle and an extra blue clip. Okay, so I come in here, and if we're lucky at all, that slides in there. All right, that keeps that from being pushed in, which frees that. Okay, media inserted. I didn't do that quick enough. I go to motion again, go to auto home. All right, it goes over there until it hits the limit switch over there. Goes, slides the table over until it hits its limit switch. And there we go, there's the auto home. Okay. I'm going to stop for now because the next thing is I'm going to actually put in the filament and set everything up and get it going and show you how to actually use this thing. But so far we know that, hey, everything works. I should go in and double check all of the screws just to make sure everything's tight, but we've gone long enough on this one. So everyone, like, subscribe, hit the alert, hit the thanks if you want to, and if you don't like what I'm doing, you don't know jack. Bye.